So in the last video, we talked about how to create boundaries based on your values. But once you have a few boundaries written down, you may still be wondering, okay, there's other spaces in my life that I'm sure need boundaries. What would those be? Today, I'm going to walk you through 11 types of boundaries so that you can reflect on which areas of your life you may need more clarity, protection, or structure. If you watched the last video and created your values-based boundaries, this is a great time to look back at them and ask which categories do these fall into and which categories might still need more attention. And even if you haven't watched that video yet, which you can do later, you can still follow along now though. As I go through each type, jot down which ones you feel like you need the most right now. First up is physical boundaries. These are boundaries that protect your physical space in your body. It has everything to do with how comfortable you feel about physical touch, privacy, and your own personal space. For example, you may have a boundary around how close people can stand next to you, or you may have a boundary around hugging, or something like if you're okay with kissing on the first date. You have a right to your own body and how others can interact with your body. So, what boundary do you need to set to ensure that you can stay comfortable around others? Emotional boundaries are next. This is in regards to your feelings, thoughts, and emotional needs in your relationships and friendships with others. Are people being respectful of your emotional needs? I like to explain this category as life can be mentally draining as it is. So what boundary can you set to ensure that people are respectful to you when you have an emotional need? An example of a boundary could be you've had a long day at work and you decline invites to go out so that you can get the rest that you need. Or it can be as much as you love and care about that person, you may not have the emotional capacity to listen to them vent right now because of how exhausted you are. You could set a boundary that says, when my cup is empty, I will be honest about my capacity instead of volunteering time and energy if I do not have it. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Intellectual boundaries are about respecting your thoughts, opinions, ideas, curiosity, and decision-making. I like to explain this one as having boundaries that ensures people respect your opinions, even if they disagree with them. Perhaps you may have a boundary when it comes to the dynamic of conversations that you participate in. Maybe as soon as you hear the person use snark, sarcasm, or insults, that you decide that your boundary is you will honor your desire to exit that conversation. Another example is if your opinion differs from the other person and the conversation starts to heat up into an argument, you might decide to no longer have conversations about that particular topic with that person again. Or maybe you no longer want to explain your reasoning behind the decision that you made to a person or group of people. So yes, while we all can share our thoughts and opinions in respectful ways, you still are the one who determines which conversations feel comfortable for you to participate in and set a boundary to it. Material boundaries are pretty simple as it just points to how you want your possessions and resources handled. This can look like what boundaries you have set when it comes to loaning friends or family money, of what expectations you would have for them in returning that money. Or it can look like allowing a friend to borrow your favorite cookware, as long as they bring it back, clean and in one piece. You could also have one that says you don't allow people to go into your purse. Or a common one I know of, since I mentioned purses, is that you have a boundary that you will not allow your purse to sit on the floor. Again, it's about what's comfortable to you and how you share and protect your possessions and resources. You own these things, so you can make the rules of how others can use them. Relationship boundaries is those boundaries that you have with romantic partners. There may be certain boundaries that you have in place depending on what dating stage you're in with that person. And at its core, you want to make sure that you both are maintaining and respecting each other's individual identities and needs. I know we sometimes want to believe we can change people, but we cannot force someone into becoming who we want them to be. And that's what I mean when I say respecting the individual's identity, okay? Both of you deserve to be respected. They have to choose whether or not they want to adjust their actions in the relationship. And if they don't want to, you have to make a decision of how you want to move forward, of whether you feel like you can adjust to it or if you need to move on to date someone else. To pressure them into changing themselves is probably the worst option you can take. So a relationship boundary can look like when you're comfortable with being intimate in the relationship timeline. It could be boundaries that you both agree on what cheating looks like or what support looks like so that you both can be respectful of it. Communicate these type of boundaries of what they look like early on could really help you have an easier journey in the relationship in the long run. And funny enough, this also can apply to friendships as well. Now, next, time boundaries are what we set because of how we prefer to use and value our time. It's how you are protecting your time for your priorities. So perhaps for you, that is, you have a hard stop at 5 p.m. so that you can leave work and go home to be with your family. Or maybe you have a time boundary that if a friend is going to be late, that you ask them to give you a heads up so that you're not awkwardly waiting on them later on. Or maybe you set a time boundary to not take calls after a certain hour or before a certain hour so that you can ensure that you get your sleep. You may already have more time boundaries than you even realize, and this is the category that they would fall under. Work boundaries. Okay, universal understanding when it comes to this one. I know I was going to bring this one up. So this is about what guidelines you want to set for your job so that you can accurately manage your workload and protect your personal time as well. This can be as simple as defining when you will allow yourself to be available for work. Are you going to take that work cell phone with you on vacation? Are you answering work phone calls at home? What projects are you willing to jump in to help in if it's optional? And how much are you willing to share about your personal life with your colleagues? Actually, another one is, do you have boundaries when it comes to after work gatherings, that are optional? So your job is going to always assume that you don't have boundaries until you decide what they are and you speak up about them. So what are those work boundaries for you? All right, we've gone a little over halfway through, but before I go over the next 5, take a moment, subscribe to this channel, like this video. If you're finding any value in it, I just love to know. So let me know. I would really appreciate the support. Share it with somebody too. Add that too. Next, we're going to talk about spiritual boundaries. These are boundaries of what you feel is respectful to your religious practices and spiritual journey, and how you're being respectful to others in their spiritual decisions. An example could be that you don't participate in certain activities because you feel that they do not align with your religious beliefs. You may also have boundaries of who you allow to pray over you or do any spiritual practices for you. Other boundaries could be what kind of place of worship you choose to attend and how you choose to support that place of worship. I actually have a boundary that I'm trying to stick to myself, which is to pray and read my Bible every morning before I look at anything on my phone, social media wise. Remember when I said that sometimes your boundaries can be hard even for you to follow? Please know that I understand. But again, nothing feels better than living your values in words and actions. So be sure that you're doing both when it comes to your spiritual boundaries. But at the end of the day, you make those decisions for yourself. Digital boundaries is up next. These are rules of how you interact and behave online. This can include what parts of your life you're willing to share. What are your limits that you want to set for yourself of how much time you spend online? It could also be what conversations you engage in and which ones that you won't. I personally have a boundary against arguing with people online. I can think of so many better things to do with my time and free will than to argue with a faceless stranger on the internet. So that's a strict boundary that I don't bend for my own mental health. I am also very generous with the block button if any disrespect occurs. So, use that to your will if you would like to. Energy boundaries is next. Energy boundaries ensures that your energy is protected as you only have so much time in a given day, all right? So this can overlap with emotional, social, and even physical boundaries, but I still think they deserve their own category because they help you notice what drains you and what helps you recover. This is such an important thing to learn about yourself. If you're not taking time to learn about yourself, you'll drain yourself quickly and have no idea of why you're so out of it to begin with. Getting to know what you need when it comes to your physical energy with sleep, your emotional energy with what you will involve yourself in, your social energy, especially my introverts. If you get overstimulated quickly and need to recharge, and your mental energy with what you decide to focus on. What do you need? What helps you operate at your best? And how can you adjust your routines and set boundaries to ensure you get exactly what you need so that you can show up in the way that you want to show up around others? Social boundaries are the most common category that I tend to see with boundaries. So these are limits in the depth and frequency of your social interactions with others. You need to have friendships and connections that are healthy and respectful. Knowing what these are can definitely help you to not spread yourself too thin so that you're not treating someone like a best friend who you should really be treated more like an acquaintance. Some of these boundaries could be who is allowed to visit your home, boundaries around who you're okay to go out with and to where. This could also be what topics you're comfortable discussing with and with whom, It could be how you and that friend handle secrets. Again, you determine what's comfortable for you. Now, the last one is internal boundaries. Internal boundaries are the limits and guidelines you set for yourself to manage your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions to situations that occur. I have an internal boundary that if I'm really upset and unable to process well in that moment, then I'm going to go take a nap. Sleep can reset your emotions very well to help you think clearly. So I take advantage of that and I'll go hit that reset button because I need that before I make any decisions. Another internal boundary that I have is that if my Oura ring alerts me that my body is showing major signs of strain, that I don't try to push through that. I try to make sure I take that time to rest. Now, this could be very difficult for me sometimes to acknowledge the pain or illness that I feel because I just want to push through it. But I've learned that that's the last thing your body wants you to do, as your symptoms are literally a way of your body telling you to take a break. So I have an internal boundary to listen to my body and do not feel guilty about taking care of it. Now, just know I'm still actively struggling through this, but I know that in time I will get stronger in reinforcing this boundary within myself if I keep trying. So you may have a boundary that's like that too. Keep trying. Don't give up on yourself. You set it for a reason, so honor it. For me, my reason is that I have a value in authenticity. I don't know why I can't say that. And I cannot be a well-being and leadership coach that is encouraging other people to take care of themselves if I'm not doing the same. So that value grounds that boundary. All right, those are all the boundary types. Now, if you've noticed, some of these can absolutely overlap, and that's okay. That's not the point though. Your boundary can fall into 3 or 4 categories at once, and that's not a bad thing. The important thing here is that from looking at these different types of boundaries, that you can better reflect of where you may be missing one or where you may be struggling to reinforce a boundary. So I want you to pause here. Which of these categories are you doing well in when it comes to boundary setting, and which are you struggling to set boundaries in? This reflection may help, kind of give you that eye into some patterns of your own behavior that maybe you weren't aware of. You may also notice you need some new boundaries that fit your values a bit better when it comes to these categories. You're always changing and growing as a human being. So, they may need to be revised as your values may have shifted based on life experiences. As you create those boundaries, think about how well they align with this current stage in your life. Are they currently serving you well? Is there anything that's out of balance with your values? Do you need to make some adjustments? What's consistently making you uncomfortable that you haven't addressed with a boundary yet? I'd highly recommend taking some time to think about your answers to these questions, and feel free to rewind this video back to spend some time journaling about each category of why you feel you're good with the boundaries that you have set for that category, or what you feel is missing and why. Now, I understand that some of you may have said, Rachel, I've need help describing the boundary. Like, I know you've given some examples, but this boundary that I'm trying to make just doesn't sound right to me. No worries, friends. In the next video, I'm going to go over some more scripts that can help you frame your boundary just right so that it can accurately represent what you need. So come back to my Setting and Reinforcing Boundaries playlist for some guidance with that. I want you to feel confident and secure in your new boundaries. So we're going to walk through this together, okay? But today, I hope you have a better understanding of the different types of boundaries and which areas of your life may need more clarity, protection, and structure. Now go spend some time reflecting and journaling the questions that I just mentioned earlier, and I'll see you next time.